Hey folks, Norb here, and today I'm taking a look at the Meze Liric II. Meze Audio is a high-end headphone maker based out of Romania. Their headphones have a reputation for being well-built, comfortable, and lean toward having a more relaxed sound. Does the Liric II live up to that? These retail in the US for $2,000 and were sent to me for review by Meze Audio, though all opinions are my own. If you want to find out more about them, or if you want to try them out for yourself, be sure to check out the product links in the description. The package includes a sleek leather case that is lined with super soft fabric. As usual with every Meze case I've used, it's well designed, intentional in every detail, feels great, and it also comes with a bag to hold the included cables. For the Liric II itself, the company decided to keep a similar look and feel to the original Liric, but added Makassar ebony for the ear cups. Makassar is a dense, heavy, expensive, and absolutely gorgeous wood with deep brown stripes. The wood also works to warm up the sound a bit. They come in at 430 grams or 15 ounces, so just under a pound. It also features a broad padded leather headband, friction sliders, metal construction throughout, and magnetic leather ear cups for easy swapping. As far as comfort goes, these are lovely. I can wear these for hours without any sort of fatigue. The clamping force feels just right, not too much and not too little, and the size of the ear cups means that my big ears can fit inside them without any sort of issues. The sound isolation is also much better than I expected. Most closed-back headphones I've used aren't nearly this effective. All in all, it looks great, feels great, and is very comfortable. So let's talk about sound. Before I get to that, if you're finding this useful, please consider hitting that like button and maybe subscribing. That stuff really helps the channel out. If you watched my review on the first Liric, you know that I appreciated it, but it took some getting used to, and that I recommended it as a good secondary headphone, something that you'd use in tandem with something else, at least if you regularly listen to a wide array of genres. That's not the case with the Liric II. In fact, I was super impressed at just how smooth and well-tuned the Liric II sounds. They sound good no matter what you throw at them, provided you have enough power. Here's the thing, they're not particularly power hungry per se. They have an impedance of just 61 ohms with a sensitivity of 100 decibel sound pressure level at 1 kilohertz, 1 milliwatt. And if you don't know what all that impedance and sensitivity talk means, in very simple terms, although the Liric II is on the lower side of impedance, it's still high enough that lower power outputs struggle a bit to get the best sound out of it. For my tests, I use an iPhone with standard Apple dongle, the iFi GoLink DAC amp, an M1 MacBook Pro which can handle higher impedance headphones, the Q-Delix 5K both unbalanced and balanced, and the Cord Mojo 2. When using these straight out of the phone with just the DAC and no amplifier, or if you're using the unbalanced port in the Q-Delix 5K, the Liric II sounds good, but not its best. It's not bad by any means. It's still smooth, it's warm, it's detailed, but the overall resonance and bloom of the sound and even the bass suffers noticeably. On the other hand, on something with even slightly more power, like the Cord Mojo 2, the balanced output on the Q-Delix 5K, the MacBook Pro, and even the iFi GoLink, that was enough to get truly excellent sound. And the better the source, the better they respond. There are a couple of caveats here, especially when it comes to cables, but before that, we need to take a look at the drivers. Inside the ear cups are the Rinaro MZ4 isodynamic array drivers. If you're not used to all that terminology, here's what it means. Rinaro is a company out of Ukraine and Poland that makes a lot of Meze's drivers, including the ones at their top-end headphones, the Empyrean II and the Elite. The MZ4 driver is a scaled-down version of the driver found in those headphones. Those are open-back, and this is a closed-back, so the difference is more than just the size. But they all use isodynamic drivers or planar magnetic drivers, which means that the sound comes from a flexible plastic diaphragm that has a magnetic layer. They call this one a hybrid array. I can't pronounce it. They call this one a hybrid array because normally isodynamic drivers either have a switchback pattern or sometimes they have a coil pattern. In this case, the MZ4 driver has both. The switchback part at the top handles bass, while the coiled part at the bottom handles the mids and treble. The reason they did this is to help make the sound more clear. The thing is, with closed-back headphones, you don't just worry about the air pressure in front of the headphone pushing sound toward your ear. You also have to worry about the air pressure the other way, toward the closed back, which messes with clarity. To help with that, Meze added this pressure equalization system that looks like a little decoration, but it actually does something useful. Clarity on these is excellent. They're precise, they sound tight, and they are very responsive. There's great detail and instrument separation, even if they still sound intimate, because that's what closed-back headphones do. The Liric II can sound fairly open for a closed-back headphone thanks to their phase-X system, which is designed to help improve the spatial sound and imaging. This worked well. Both the spatial qualities and the imaging were great, But if you're expecting it to match your open back headphones, it won't. The sound still has that intimate studio quality, which is great if that's what you want. The other issue with closed back headphones is that the bass gets amplified because it's bouncing around the back and the ear pads, especially the ear pads. If you get a good seal, you're gonna get more bass, which is one of the reasons why bass sounds so different in closed back headphones from person to person. The sound hybrid system aligns the mids and the highs with your ear canal. To make sure that things still sound relaxed and not sibilant, there's also something called the quarter wavelength resonator mask, or QWRM. This covers the driver frame in such a way that it quiets down the high peaks above 7 kHz. This brings us to frequency response. Right off the bat, I'll say that the tuning caught me off guard. The frequency response on the Lyric II is U-shaped. It has a bit of a bump in the bass region, a dip in the mids and lower treble, and then some extra emphasis on the high treble above 10 kHz. That's different from the first Lyric because that one had more of a W-shaped frequency response, meaning it had boosts in part of the bass, parts of the mids, and the upper treble. Meze changed its tuning because of feedback from the audio community. Now, I didn't know this when I first used these because I don't look at frequency response graphs before testing out headphones, so this was a surprise, a very good one. The sound on the Lyric II is much more enjoyable than the Lyric, something that is both a lot of fun and relaxing that walks the line between warm and neutral very well. Starting with the bass. This has a great slam, although it isn't extremely physical. At no point did I ever experience any sort of muddiness or bleed into the mids. It's tight, it's well controlled, and resonant without being overpowering. The mids are where the Lyric II pull back some, and definitely I feel shapes what to expect out of the sound. Instruments here are clear and resonant, but if there's a lot of activity in the bass region or the upper treble, stuff here sometimes gets crowded or overshadowed. I found this especially to be the case with large orchestral groups and musicals. On the other hand, this actually played well in other genres like hip hop and metal. When it came to voices, I found men's vocals to come out really well on these. Resonant and smooth, especially lower vocals, though higher vocals still did very well. Women's vocals weren't quite as engaging to my ears, but they were still rich and the timbre was fantastic, especially with the volume being higher. But this is where I caught myself thinking about EQ. The default sound on these makes vocals great for things like metal and hard rock, but in things like folk and jazz, sometimes I found voices, especially women's voices, to be overpowered by instruments. In the lower treble region, I like what I heard in most genres, especially smaller ensembles. Music was smooth and pulled back just enough to not be fatiguing, although I personally kept wanting to push the EQ above 3 kHz up a bit, just to open up the sound a bit, especially for violins. That said, pulling back here like Meze did also pulls off a really neat trick. The problem with highly detailed hi-fi sound is that sometimes you'll hear some of the recording defects. Maybe someone peaked while singing into a mic, for example, a little too loudly, and that comes off as this sandpapery sound in the recording itself. Again, if you're using really highly detailed headphones, something that's analytical, you'll hear it. It'll sound like just like little scratches on the audio. This pullback hides that beautifully. So you're still getting this full resonance and resolution, but those elements are poof, gone. Not there, not bothering you. And this, along with the improved tuning, may be the thing I love the most about the Lyric II. I cannot emphasize enough just how smooth these can sound. But right next to that is a part I didn't love. See, in some cases, that 10 kHz bump that I talked about earlier, with some sources, it comes off as a little bit sibilant, with some extra emphasis on things like hi-hats, even with the QWRM system in place. With some productions, especially some jazz, this was very noticeable. But the degree to which this sibilance happens depends heavily on the cables that you use. I told you I'd be coming back to this. The Lyric II comes with two sets of cables, a 10-foot 3.5mm unbalanced cable and their premium 4.4mm balanced copper cable, which by itself sells for $249. The 3.5mm cable isn't bad, but I noticed that it emphasized the treble a little bit too much for my taste, causing some extra emphasis with those higher instruments. The 4.4mm balanced copper cable, on the other hand, was notably smoother throughout. I loved that thing, and I didn't think that I would notice that big of a difference, but the higher end cable brought down that extra sibilance and presented the sound much more smoothly. And that brings us to timbre. In the original Lyric, the timbre did not feel all that natural. That was one of my big complaints against it. That's not a problem at all with the Lyric II, which I feel is excellent, and I immediately gravitated toward the tuning on these. I really think Meze developed a winner here. Getting into some specific genres, I absolutely love these for more popular genres, pop music, hip hop, and rock, especially stuff in the metal and industrial realm. These were fun for that. And these may just have become my favorite headphones for heavy rock. The driving bass and even the mids made stuff like symphonic rock like Epica or deathcore like Opal and Sky sound exciting without being overt. Fun, driving, and smooth enough that I could, and did, listen to these for hours. The same goes with pop and hip hop or things that are mixed like either of those, like indie rock or folk by traditionally pop artists. Now, if you have the Lyric 1, I don't know that it's enough of a reason to upgrade. I just think the Lyric 2 does better. Electronic music was also great. Again, driving in fun without being exhausting. This goes for something lively like deadmau5 or something more atmospheric like Johan Johansson. Hit or miss for me on these were things like folk, indie, and jazz, although I still enjoy them thoroughly. My only complaint is what I mentioned before, that voices sometimes potentially get drowned out by instruments. This was never a real big issue, just something I noticed. Now, music with larger ensembles, think musicals, operas, classical orchestras. That's where I found these to have their biggest weaknesses. Still good, still smooth, still relaxing and fun, but if those make up most of what you're listening to, then you may want to consider other options. I don't think that you'll be disappointed with these, don't get me wrong. I just know that, for me, I would probably want something with a bit more emphasis in the mids, and maybe even in the 6 to 8 kHz region. My takeaway is simple. The Lyric 2 are a significant upgrade over the original Lyric when it comes to sound, and it's one I can easily recommend to most people looking for a solid all-around headphone at this price range, especially closed-back headphones with a lively but relaxing tuning. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. Hit me up in the comments if you have any questions. And if you just want to keep watching, then click here for my latest video, or click here to watch something that YouTube thinks that you'll enjoy.